when the stars align. Damn it, hand. Until next time, my wonderful cultists. God, the freaking work. Hello, hello, my lovely cultists. And to all those not yet initiated. I'm Hannah, the girl who apparently can't help but torture herself with terrible stories. Railroading is often the sin of the newer GM, but sometimes they force their players into other situations. Uncomfortable or just outright horrifying situations, without consulting the players first. Today, I have just such a story for you. And I will say this now. If you are triggered by mention or description of in-character sexual assault, you might want to give this RPG horror story a pass. So, with that said and warnings given, let's get into it, shall we? Many thanks to Reddit user JCP1195 for allowing me to share your story. Today's story is titled, My Horrible DM, or How I Learned to Suck It Up and Play My Own Gender. So this happened years ago, somewhere near the beginning of 5e, though I can't say for sure. I've been listening to Crit Crap at work, and it reminded me of this awful experience I had years ago. This game was played entirely over voice chat, so thankfully I never had to be in the same room with them during this. Important characters are as follows. Myself, W, my best friend and DM at the time, X, friend of W who I never met, Z, also friend of W who I never met. Okay, these letters as names are going to confuse me. So instead, we're going to call W Wanker, for reasons that will become evident later. X will be Fighter and Z will be Wizard. Okay, back to the story. Fighter and Wizard don't take too much of the spotlight in this tale, but they also didn't really help much, so I'm adding them in when necessary. Forgive me if my explanations are a bit scattered. I'm barely remembering a lot of this even now. So, I had been getting interested in 5e and had been to a few Adventures League sessions, but it just wasn't clicking well for me. I mentioned this to Wanker, who was very interested in starting a game, but he wanted to run 3.5 instead, which I was open to learning because I barely even knew 5e. Anyway, we did a session 0 to start things off, and so I could get a feel for the system. I rolled a lawful neutral elven artificer, or at least a homebrew one he made, named Lisette Vellier, and her automaton companion Reginald. At the time of this game, I was very much into play-by-post role-playing in forms, and I was interested in learning how to better write for a female character. So I had planned to use this opportunity to roleplay as one in the game. Before this, I have often played female characters in video games, but even in RPGs, it's kind of hard for me to get into the mindset, since all of the responses are already written down. I was told ahead of meeting the other two players that I was on par with them level-wise, and that Reginald, my character's automaton, would follow her commands expressly, and no one else's in the party. I had also expressed that Lisette was a lesbian, since both the other players were playing male characters, and I had no interest in participating in anything even close to ERP. So far, so good. Session 0 is fun, and I agree to continue. Moving into Session 1, I meet the other two players, who are playing an orc fighter with a, quote, lightsaber, and a human wizard with nothing particularly notable about them. Immediately, as my character goes to join the party, the fighter challenges her to a duel which I am browbeat by the DM into accepting. The fight is over incredibly quickly, as the lightsaber the fighter has simultaneously provides resistance 5 against constructs, plus 5 AC against constructs, extra damage versus constructs, and ignores any AC granted by armor. I'm immediately annoyed about how he has a weapon specifically built to destroy Reginald, as my character was basically defenseless without him. But accept it when Wanker says the game isn't meant to be PvP focused, so it wasn't targeted at me. Ladies, gentlemen, and NBs of all ages, we have our first red flag. Moving forward from this, we get a good bit of RPing in, and the party heads to bed for the night. Following that, the party awakens to Fighter's orc having knocked over a lantern in his sleep, and this caused the building to burst into flames. As a result, Fighter grabs the table in our room, which Wanker specifically explained looked like the tables in the Krusty Krab, or essentially like ship wheels for those who don't watch SpongeBob, and tosses it through the window before jumping out. My character and Wizard both jump out after him, and, with no save, no check to avoid it, Lisette lands on the table, and one of the posts of the table goes right into her... yeah. Wanker then texts me to explain that Lisette is now straight, and that she was susceptible to persuasion oh god. I'm so upset I'm sputtering. And is now susceptible to persuasion from males. Okay, first off, ow? That's wood, and wood tends to leave behind splinters. So, yeah, thanks for that horrifying image. Second, even if it wasn't wooden, this would have torn her up horribly and left that area out of commission for a long while. This guy must have never been with a woman in any shape or form, because there is a reason foreplay is a thing. Third, this event turned her straight? Excuse me? That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. And honestly, it's actually really insulting. She basically got R-ed by a table leg, so if anything, it would probably convince her even more to avoid that sort of thing. Okay. Okay, Hannah. Calm down. Let's get back to this horror show of a story. Also, red flag number 2. This was red flag number 1. Probably should have been 2. Definitely number 2! But at the time, I was still willing to let the whole lightsaber thing slide. Moving on to session 2. I am honestly surprised you came back after that. Wanker introduces a new character, Liesel, his DMPC Catgirl Shinobi Revenant. Now, I know what you're thinking, but at the time I had no real grasp of what trouble a DMPC foretold. According to Wanker, she was to act as a quest giver, guide, and, when necessary, combat helper. He sent us a picture of her character sheet, which I later found out was faked and pretended that she wasn't an epic level NPC. What? Why would a DM send the players a copy of their character sheet? That doesn't make any... Okay, you know what? I'm labeling this as red flag number 3. After that, it's a little vague, but I remember going into a suspected vampire manor and searching for loot. Long before any of us had figured out the puzzles or killed the inhabitants, Liesel had vanished. And when we found the treasure room, she was inside with, quote, an overly distended stomach like a mother swollen with child, end quote, and she was just swallowing the last 2 gold coins as we entered. Red flag number 2. God damn it, no, this is number 4. I was annoyed again, but still moved forward, giving Wanker the benefit of the doubt. Session 3. I found out that they had played again between sessions 2 and 3 without inviting me, and somehow, though I never got the full story, were at Liesel's Minotaur friend's sex castle. Yes, you read that right. He gave me a far more detailed explanation than I needed, and proceeded to explain how the party, who up to this point had been lawful neutral at worst, was going to take over the world.
Of course!
I, not having been warned of or prepared for an evil campaign, and being very attached to Lisette as she was, motivations included, refused to help and ordered Reginald to attack the other two, expecting her to at least die in battle against evil. Well, Reginald refused, against Wanker's assurances at the start of the game, and he proceeded to explain that Reginald was sentient the whole time and had been preparing to join the others to take over the world.
Of course!
For refusing to help, Liesel's Minotaur friend whipped Lisette with a whip of bondage which stripped her nude and tied her to a table. Thankfully, he never explained what happened after that, but the rest of the party left, and I left the chat. Good. Turns out it took them another 4.5 hours before Wanker realized I was gone. Excellent. And he called me, offended that I had left, and tried to explain his reasoning for trying to ruin/change everything about my first real D&D character. I wasn't having it, and told him such, and I refused to play any more of his campaign. Years later, after high school... Whoa, wait. They were in high school? I mean, this explains why Wanker had no idea about female anatomy, but... Holy crap, what the hell? High school! We tried again with some close friends I had made in high school, and, long story short, we found out that we were playing a D&D version of a book Wanker had written. And when we got to a point with a made-to-lose fight that we were winning, he gave the boss immunity to all damage halfway through, and we gave up on him. Even through all that, he had still been my best friend since first grade, and we still had a decent friendship going forward, until he took me to a drug deal without warning me, or his dealer, and almost got me shot? What? Since then, I haven't heard from him, but I've recently started playing female characters again. It helps that no one in the party tries to get in their pants or force them into unsavory positions. TLDR. My best friend ruins my first D&D experience by going on a power trip and locking my character in a sex dungeon. This was a true horror story, and considering how long ago it happened, I'm sure there are other red flags that OP has since forgotten. But even just these were bad enough. This has to be one of the worst I have heard or read so far. And I'm glad that OP decided to nope on out of there when they did. Though I'm not sure I would have stayed friends with the DM after that. And the drug deal thing was just the vomit cherry on top of the shit sundae. I'm also happy that OP has since been able to play female characters again, but I don't blame them for avoiding it after something like that. Anyway, I think I'm going to go take a boiling shower. Or maybe climb into an autoclave after all of that. If you have a story you would like to be read on the channel, feel free to post it in the comments. Or in my Discord in the RPG Horror Stories thread. Maybe I'll even make a Reddit of my own for that. What do you guys think? For now, though, it is time to say goodnight. Until next time, my wonderful cultists, when the stars align. My horrible I'm barely or at least a homebrew version of the one of and a human withered, and left that. But at the time, I had no real grasp of what even though all that for no